Nobody manipulates you because you're weak. They manipulate you because you're predictable, and that's a truth few people are willing to accept. You respond too quickly, over-explain yourself, feel too much, and without realizing it, you give away exactly what others need to control you. Society has taught you that being emotional, accessible, and understanding is an absolute virtue, but forgot to tell you the price. In the real game, the one that doesn't appear in pretty books, whoever doesn't master their own mind becomes a pawn on someone else's chessboard. Politics guided by reality, not ideals. And the reality is simple. Either you learn to control yourself, or you will be controlled. Now tell me honestly, how many times have you reacted impulsively and then regretted it? How many times have you said yes when you meant no? How many times have you let an opportunity pass you by because you were waiting for the perfect moment, the right motivation, someone's approval? That's not a lack of ability. It's a lack of control. And control doesn't come from motivation. It comes from structure. Machiavelli wasn't talking about being cruel. He was talking about understanding the game as it really is. It's better to be feared than loved, because love depends on the other person. But respect comes from control. And when you don't control your emotions, your actions, and your exposure, you are, in practice, surrendering control of your life. But here's the point that changes everything, and that almost no one dares to apply. Becoming cold isn't about becoming insensitive. It's about becoming strategic. It's about feeling, but not reacting automatically. It's about acting even without the will to. It's about building in silence while the world is distracted. It's about eliminating the version of yourself that needs to be accepted, validated, understood. Because in the end justifies the means, and the means here is absolute mental discipline. And if you're willing to go through this process, what you find on the other side isn't just evolution, it's freedom. But this freedom comes at a cost, and it begins exactly where most people give up. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder, you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe, and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There's a phase in the life of any man who decides to truly grow up where he needs to disappear. Not dramatically, not as someone seeking attention, but as someone who has understood something profound about human nature. He realizes that announcing his plans is, more often than not, a disguised way of seeking validation, and validation is a cheap currency in the game of power. This is where the first layer of Machiavelli's thinking comes in. Decisions based on real human nature, not romantic ideals. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, you give away energy, create openings, attract the opinions of those who haven't built anything, and even worse, you satisfy your ego before execution. It's as if the brain says it's already done, when in reality it hasn't even started. A simple example, that guy who posts new project coming. This time it's going to work. Usually doesn't follow through. Now, observe the opposite. The one who disappears, who stops showing up, who works in silence, and months later reappears unrecognizable. This one understood something that few understand. The appearance of virtue is useful, but silent action is lethal. And here's a strategic point that almost no one talks about. Silence isn't just the absence of speech, it's an active tool for building. While the world is distracted, commenting, judging, and reacting, you're operating in the dark. Politics guided by reality, not ideals. The real game isn't about who speaks best, it's about who executes best. Imagine a chess player who announces every move before making it. He would be destroyed. Now bring that to your life. You don't need to post every goal, every plan, every step. On the contrary, start small. Stop sharing financial goals. Stop telling your next professional moves. Drastically reduce what you expose. Use that space to build. Want a practical example? Instead of saying you're going to learn English, disappear for 90 days and study 1 hour a day. Instead of saying you're going to improve your body, go to the gym in silence. Instead of promising discipline, build discipline. Because in the end justifies the means, and the means here is strategic silence. But something even deeper happens when you adopt this posture. You begin to become unpredictable, and unpredictability is one of the most powerful forms of psychological protection. When nobody knows what you're doing, nobody can interfere. Better to be feared than loved. And this isn't about literal fear, but about silent respect. People don't know how to read you. They don't know how to judge you. They don't know where you're going. And that gives you freedom. Freedom to make mistakes without an audience, to grow without pressure, to reinvent yourself without interruptions. And over time, you begin to realize something curious. Silence not only protects, it transforms. It forces you to deal with yourself, without distractions, without applause, without escape. And it is precisely at this point that many give up, because the next step requires something even more difficult than remaining silent. Acting, even when you are not well. After he learns to be silent, he realizes an even more uncomfortable truth. You can't wait to feel like acting. This is the point where most people break down, because we've been conditioned to believe that motivation comes before action, when in reality, it comes after. Machiavelli already understood this implicitly. Decisions based on real human nature, not ideals. And human nature is unstable, emotional, volatile. If you depend on it, you'll never build anything solid. Emotional alchemy begins exactly here, separating what you feel from what you do. You can be tired, frustrated, insecure, and still act. In fact, that's where the power lies. Because while most people only act when they feel good, you act regardless. A simple example, waking up with no desire to study, but studying anyway, training even when lazy, working even when angry. This isn't about ignoring emotions, it's about not being controlled by them. And here's where a strategic concept comes in that few people manage to sustain in practice: the calculated use of force, because acting when everything is easy doesn't require force. It requires comfort. Now, acting when you're at your limit, when your body begs for rest, when your mind tries to sabotage you, that does require real force. It's at that moment that you build a different identity, an identity that doesn't negotiate with itself. And that changes everything, because little by little, you stop being someone who tries and become someone who does. Want an applicable example? Create a non-negotiable minimum standard, something simple but daily. It could be 30 minutes of reading, books like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, 1 hour of study, 45 minutes of training. It doesn't matter your emotional state, you do it. No drama, no negotiation. Because in the end, virtue and fortune go hand in hand. Luck favors the prepared, but preparation requires cold consistency. Now, there's a powerful side effect to this process that few realize. When you start acting independently of what you feel, you become less manipulable. Because most manipulation happens through emotion, fear, guilt, anxiety, validation. But if you don't react emotionally in the expected way, the game changes. Avoiding being hated remains important, but being emotionally predictable, that makes you vulnerable. And this is where the transition to a higher level of control begins. You no longer react automatically. You observe, process, decide, and act strategically. But as you become colder, more rational, more disciplined, something inevitable happens. You start to distance yourself from many people. And if you don't know how to handle that, you might back down. Because the next step isn't comfortable. It requires you to embrace something most people run from their whole lives. At some point in this journey, he realizes he can no longer continue surrounded by the same people, the same environments, the same shallow conversations. Not because he thinks he's better, but because he finally understood the invisible cost of coexistence. Most people don't lift you up, they keep you in the same place. And that's not malice, it's human nature. Decisions based on real human nature, not ideals. People seek comfort, validation, belonging, not evolution. And if you're not careful, you'll end up trading your growth to avoid feeling alone. This is where one of the hardest decisions comes in: strategic distancing. It's not about fighting, it's not about announcing, it's not about creating drama. It's simply about reducing access. Less presence, less explanation, less available energy. Because in the end, your own loyal armies are more effective than fragile alliances. And in this case, your first army is yourself. However, isolation, when misunderstood, becomes a prison. And when used well, it becomes a laboratory. The difference lies in the intention. If you isolate yourself as an escape, you weaken. But if you isolate yourself strategically, you build yourself up, a calculated use of force. This period of withdrawal is where you reorganize your mind, redefine patterns, and rebuild your identity. Want a practical example? Start by doing a social detox. Drastically reduce interactions that don't add value. Useless WhatsApp groups, repetitive conversations, environments that drain energy. Replace that with productive time, reading, studying, training, planning. If you want to deepen your strategic mind, read The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli or The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Not to become a manipulator, but to understand how the game really works. Because whoever understands the game ceases to be a pawn. But there's an emotional price to pay in this process, and it's unavoidable. The silence that was once comfortable begins to weigh on you. The lack of validation is unsettling. Loneliness reveals things you avoided facing. And that's exactly where the transformation happens, because without distractions, you begin to see yourself more clearly. Your patterns, your weaknesses, your excuses, and that can be uncomfortable. But it's necessary. Better to be feared than loved. And here, once again, it's not about others. It's about you starting to respect yourself to the point of no longer accepting your own mediocrity. But as you grow stronger in this isolation, something curious begins to happen. You stop reacting impulsively. You observe more, speak less, feel less need to prove anything. And without realizing it, you begin to develop a skill that completely changes the game. The ability to become unpredictable. After going through silence, emotional discipline, and isolation, he begins to operate differently, colder, more strategic, harder to read. And this doesn't happen by chance. It's the result of a deep understanding. Whoever is predictable is manipulable. It's that simple. Most people react automatically. Someone provokes, they respond. Someone criticizes, they defend themselves. Someone praises, they open up. It's a pattern, and patterns are easy to exploit. Machiavelli already implied this when discussing human nature. Decisions based on real human nature, not ideals. If you react like everyone else reacts, you can be controlled like everyone else is controlled. This is where the power of unpredictability is born. It's not about being unstable, it's about not being obvious. It's about choosing when to react, how to react, or simply not reacting. Imagine someone trying to provoke you and not getting any reaction. That breaks the psychological game instantly. And here's an extremely strategic point: silence as an active response. Because often, not reacting is the most powerful reaction possible, a calculated use of force. Most people believe they need to take a stand all the time, answer everything, explain themselves. But those who understand the game know that every reaction is an exposure, and exposure generates vulnerability. Want a practical example? Someone criticizes you in public. The common pattern is to defend yourself immediately. Now, imagine doing the opposite. You observe, you don't react at the moment, you maintain your composure. Then, if you're strategic, you respond calmly or simply ignore it. This completely changes the dynamic. Another example, someone expects you to say yes because you always have, and suddenly you say no without over-justifying. This kind of pattern break instantly repositions you. An appearance of virtue remains useful. You maintain politeness, respect, but without becoming predictable or too accessible. Over time, this attitude begins to generate an interesting effect on those around you. People start to respect you more, even without understanding exactly why, because there's an implicit tension in someone who isn't easily deciphered. It's better to be feared than loved. Again, not in the literal sense, but in the sense of not being seen as someone easy to manipulate. And this puts you in a different position in the social game. But there's a risk here. If you stop at this point, you might become just someone closed off, reactive to the world, without a clear direction. Because controlling reactions is only one part of the game. The other part is raising your standards to a level where you simply no longer negotiate with mediocrity. And that requires an even more radical decision, a silent war against your own comfort. At some point in this journey, he realizes it's no longer about motivation, nor about basic discipline. It's about standards. And standards are what separate those who try from those who build something real. Most people live at an acceptable level. They do enough not to fail, but never enough to stand out. And this is not a coincidence, it's an unconscious choice. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The reality is simple. The world rewards above-average consistency, not intention. And if you don't set a high standard for yourself, someone else will, and it's usually low. The standard of the absolute is born when you decide you no longer negotiate with your own potential. There is no more "not today," no more "I'll do it later," no more "this is good enough." There is execution every day. Want a direct example? While most people train 2 or 3 times a week, you train 5. While most people study when they have a test, you study daily. While most people consume content, you produce it. But here's the point almost no one talks about. Raising the bar isn't about doing more things. It's about eliminating what shouldn't be there. Calculated use of force. You start treating your time as a strategic asset. Every wasted hour starts to bother you. Every distraction starts to seem too expensive. And that completely changes your relationship with the day. Want a practical example? Do a real audit of your time for 3 days. Write everything down, literally everything. You'll realize how much time is being wasted on things that don't add value, pointless social media, empty conversations, procrastination disguised as rest. From there, you start cutting. No drama, no justification, because in the end justifies the means. And the means here is brutal discipline with your time. Another direct application: define 3 non-negotiable daily priorities. No matter what happens, they get done. This creates a solid foundation for execution. Over time, this pattern begins to shape your identity. You stop being someone who tries to be disciplined and become someone who naturally operates at a high level. And this changes how you see yourself and how others see you. Avoiding being hated still matters, but pleasing others ceases to be a priority. You no longer adjust your behavior to be accepted. You adjust it to be effective. Virtue and fortuna come into play again. The higher your standard, the more prepared you are when opportunity arises. But as you climb this level, something inevitable begins to happen. You realize that the greatest resistance doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within, that old, comfortable, insecure version of yourself that still tries to negotiate, and that, if not eliminated, will pull you back down. And it is at this point that transformation demands the most radical decision of all. There comes a point when you can no longer evolve while carrying the same identity. It's not about improving habits. It's about ending an entire version of yourself. And here's the truth that few have the courage to face. You don't truly grow while still protecting who you were. The version that needs approval, that over-explains, that diminishes itself to fit others. That version cannot remain in control. Machiavelli understood this brutally. Decisions based on real human nature, not ideals. And the reality is that you won't become a strong person trying to keep a weak identity intact. There's a cut, a rupture, a point where you stop negotiating with yourself. And that's not comfortable, it's not beautiful, it's not inspiring at first. It's silent, lonely, and often painful, but necessary. Because in the end justifies the means. And the means here is the courage to abandon who you were. And this process doesn't just happen symbolically, it demands concrete actions, calculated use of force. You start making decisions that your old self would never make, saying no without guilt, taking a stand without apologizing, cutting ties that no longer make sense, taking full responsibility for the results without outsourcing, without victimhood. Want a direct example? That person who always postponed projects for fear of judgment now starts before they're ready. The one who always accepted any invitation so as not to displease now chooses where to be. The one who always justified their failures now simply corrects and moves on. And if you want to further strengthen this mindset, it's worth studying authors who address this process of internal rupture, such as Friedrich Nietzsche with the concept of becoming who you are, or even revisiting Niccolo Machiavelli from a more practical perspective. Because this isn't theory, it's psychological execution. But perhaps the most important point of all is understanding that this death doesn't happen just once. It happens in layers. Each level you climb requires something within you to be left behind. An appearance of virtue remains useful in the social game, yes, but internally, you need to be brutally honest. It's better to be feared than loved, even by yourself. Internal respect comes before any external validation. And when you start operating at this level, something changes definitively. You no longer recognize yourself in your old limitations. What once seemed difficult now seems basic. What once held you back no longer affects you. But ironically, it's at this point that many relax. They think they've arrived. And that's exactly where the game changes again, because deep down, there is no end point. There is constant adaptation. There is continuous evolution. There is the need to reinvent yourself, always. Now let me ask you a question that few people have the courage to truly answer. Are you in control of your life, or are you just reacting to what's happening around you? Because if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that many of your decisions aren't strategic. They're emotional, impulsive, conditioned, and that comes at a high cost. Every automatic reaction, every yes you didn't want to give, every plan you announced and didn't execute, all of that shapes a version of you that lives in survival mode. And here's the turning point. You don't have to continue like this. But there's also no transformation without discomfort, politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Either you take control or someone else takes it for you. Think about what you've seen so far. strategic silence, action independent of emotional state, isolation as a laboratory, unpredictability as protection, high standards, and above all, the courage to kill the old version of yourself. This isn't pretty theory. This is a structure of personal power. And power, in the end, isn't about dominating others. It's about not being dominated. Calculated use of force, decisions based on real human nature. Virtù and fortuna walking hand in hand. Now the question that remains is simple but uncomfortable. What are you going to do with this? Are you going to continue consuming content, understanding everything and applying nothing? Or are you going to choose one point, just one, and start today? So I want to really challenge you. What's the first cut you need to make? Is it to stop talking so much? Is it to act even when you don't feel like it? Is it to distance yourself from those who keep you in the same place? Is it to raise your standards? Or is it to finally abandon the version of yourself that you know no longer serves you? Write that down, decide that, and start, because nobody will do it for you. And if you've made it this far, you've already understood something that most people never understand. The game isn't external, it's internal. And winning this game changes everything. Now do this. If this type of content confronts you, bothers you, and at the same time makes you think differently, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here, we don't say what you want to hear. We say what you need to face.